The moment her car hit me, I wasn't scared. I wasn't panicked. I had never been more certain about anything in my life. The world didn't slow down like people always say it does. There was no dramatic flash of memories, no screaming inner voice. Just silence, the kind of silence you get right before thunder splits the sky. I looked straight into her eyes through the windshield before impact. Her pupils widened. Her lips parted. She recognized me. Too late. Then it came. The thud of my body smashing into the hood, the crack of glass, the shriek of brakes and metal, and then, nothing. I woke up to white walls and the antiseptic smell of a hospital. My ribs were on fire. My head throbbed like it had been hollowed out and filled with bricks. Someone was crying softly beside me. I didn't have to open my eyes to know who it was. "Elijah," she whispered. "God, no, please, not like this." Her voice, still warm, still sweet, still fake. I opened my eyes slowly, blinking against the light. Her face came into focus, mascara smudged, lipstick faded, cheeks streaked with tears. "Elijah," she breathed. "Can you hear me?" I blinked, looked away, swallowed the bile rising in my throat. She thought I had jumped because I couldn't live without her. She was wrong. Where am I?" I croaked, voice dry like paper. Her hands flew to her mouth. "You're awake. Oh my God, thank God." I looked at her for a moment, then furrowed my brow. "Do I know you?" Her lips trembled. "I'm Liz," she said quietly. "Your fiancé." I let the silence hang, let her twist in it, because that was the first lie. She hadn't been my fiancé for a long time. Not really. Not after what she did. But I played my part. I let the nurses rush in. I let them whisper about trauma, memory loss, shock. I let her stay beside me, holding my hand like she still had a right to it. Because I needed her close enough to watch her fall. The first time I met her, I was late to my own lecture. It was one of those dead-end Thursday afternoons, the kind where you feel like your entire life has already been written and filed away. I had just finished a rewrite for a second-tier studio, a script they'd end up gutting and shelving anyway, and I was running on cheap coffee and self-loathing. I stormed into the room at the back of the indie bookstore, expecting the usual crowd of bored, aspiring writers. What I didn't expect was her, Elizabeth Monroe. She sat dead center, hands folded on the table, black fountain pen resting beside a leather notebook. She wasn't just beautiful. Beauty is easy. She had something else. Poise, intent, danger dressed up in pearls and red lipstick. When I asked the group who here actually wrote stories, not journal entries or Instagram captions, she didn't flinch. "I do," she said, voice smooth as scotch. I remember pausing just for a second. The room went quiet, and I saw the way the others turned toward her, as if waiting for permission to speak. She already had power. After the session, she approached me, calm, collected, wearing a navy dress that fit her like it had been tailored for that moment. I asked her what she wrote about. She said, "People who think they're in control." I should have walked away then. Instead, I asked her to coffee. 1 week later, I let her read a draft of my newest script. She didn't critique it. She dissected it, scene by scene. She knew structure, knew character, knew tension better than most agents I'd met. And when she looked at me afterward, she didn't ask me what I wanted from her. She told me what I needed. "You're almost good, Elijah," she said, "but you still write like you're trying to prove something." "And you don't?" I asked. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I used to. We started seeing each other more after that. Always her idea. A call at midnight to go for a drive. A silent invitation to sit with her on the roof of her apartment building. Champagne and plastic cups, jazz on vinyl and stories we'd both clearly told to other people before. She never asked for anything. That was her game. Make you chase her. Make you want to be enough. And I did. I wanted to be enough. She told me she loved ambition, that she hated laziness, that her last boyfriend was comfortable, the worst insult in her vocabulary. She never asked about my family, only about my goals. Never about what I felt, only what I wanted. And still, I fell. Because when she looked at me like I mattered, the rest of the world blurred out. The doubts, the compromises, the part-time jobs, they didn't exist. Only her. She took me to networking events I wasn't invited to, whispered names into my ear, guided me through rooms full of men in blazers and women who smiled like they were selling perfume and poison at the same time. She helped me land a meeting with a real producer. She talked about our future like it was a company we were about to launch. And I told myself that was love. Now, lying in this hospital bed, listening to her speak softly to the doctor outside the room, I think back to the first time she held my face in her hands and said, "You're going to change the world, Elijah, but only if you let me help you." That line? It wasn't love. It was a contract. I shift in the bed slightly, eyes half-lidded. Her voice grows clearer through the door. "He doesn't remember anything? Not even me?" she asks. The doctor says something about post-traumatic amnesia, a possible temporary condition, nothing conclusive yet. She walks back in. Her eyes are glassy, her smile carefully broken. "I brought you something," she says, holding up a paperback. It's my script, the one I wrote before she walked into my life, except the name on the cover is hers. I look at it, let my eyes linger, confused, as if I'm seeing it for the first time. "Did I write that?" I ask. She hesitates. Then slowly, she nods. "We co-wrote it, baby. You just don't remember." I nod softly, watching her. That was lie number 2. And I'm counting. Back then, the warning signs were easy to miss. That's the thing about red flags. They don't wave. They whisper. And I was too busy listening to the way her lips wrapped around my name to hear the truth behind her smile. The first one came early. We were out with friends. Or I guess, her friends. Industry people. A producer's assistant with a coke habit. A woman who used to be a screenwriter until she married an agent. Everyone had a title but no identity. I was still working retail during the day and writing at night. I didn't belong there. She knew that. She wanted me to feel it. And when I made a comment about a director, a guy who'd butchered one of my favorite indie films, she put her hand on my knee and laughed a little too hard. "Don't say that here," she whispered through gritted teeth. "He's sitting behind you." He wasn't. She smiled at the table, untouched wine glass in hand, and said, "Elijah's still learning how this world works." Everyone chuckled. And I laughed too, because what else could I do? That's how she made you feel small, with charm and subtle cruelty. The second time was worse. She'd just started working with a boutique production firm. I'd been grinding through a rewrite that wasn't coming together. She offered to read it, said she wanted to help. 2 days later, I got a text from an acquaintance in the industry. "Hey, congrats on getting that pitch out there. Didn't know you were working with Liz now." I hadn't sent the pitch. I hadn't shared it with anyone else. Only her. I asked her about it. She didn't deny it. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "I cleaned it up. You needed help. You can't afford to be stubborn. But you sent it under your name. We're a team," she said, like that excused everything. "Your ideas, my execution, what's the difference?" It was hard to argue with someone who made your betrayal sound like a gift. Another time, we were at a gallery opening. She introduced me to some suit with slicked back hair and a grudge against daylight. "Elijah's a screenwriter," she said. The man raised an eyebrow. "Anything I'd know?" Elizabeth cut in before I could speak. "We're working on something right now. A character drama with noir elements. My concept. He's bringing it to life." I stood there, stunned. She didn't look at me once during that conversation. Later, I confronted her. She rolled her eyes. "God, Elijah, do you want to be respected or do you want credit?" I told myself it didn't matter. That the ends would justify the means. That when I made it, I'd look back and understand. But I wasn't climbing. I was being lifted just high enough to be useful. Just close enough to think I mattered. It was like kissing someone through glass. Always near, never real. She started changing my voice in the scripts, cutting parts of dialogue that felt too me, replacing them with cleaner, safer lines that read like they'd been poured through a focus group. "Trust me," she'd say. "This is what people want. No, Elizabeth. It's what you want. But I nodded, because I didn't want to lose her. Looking back, I lost myself first. Now, in this sterile hospital bed, watching her read emails on her phone like nothing happened, I see her more clearly than ever. She's already laying groundwork. I hear her on the phone with someone from a studio casually mentioning the recovery and how we might be revisiting a project together once he's stable. We? She smiles when she hangs up. Then she looks at me, careful and composed. You're doing so well today, she says. Maybe tomorrow I can take you outside. She strokes my hand gently, eyes warm. You used to love the sun. I don't respond, just stare at the ceiling, counting how long it takes before her touch feels cold. The lies are piling up. The real question is, how many more before she starts to wonder what I'm hiding? She didn't ask me to marry her. She orchestrated it. Back then, I thought it was spontaneous, one of those golden movie moments you tell your future kids about. But when I look back, I see it clearly now. Nothing about that night was an accident. It was raining. Not pouring. Just that cinematic kind of rain that slicks the city and makes everything look like it belongs in a perfume commercial. She wore a white dress, the one with the slit she knew made heads turn, and she insisted we take a walk through the arts district after dinner. We stopped in front of an old brick theater with marquee lights flickering half dead. I used to love this place, she said, squeezing my hand. I always imagined my name in lights. It was charming, disarming. Then she turned to me and said, You know what would be poetic? I smiled. What? If we got engaged in front of the only theater that never let me in. I laughed, nervous, thrown off. Before I could say anything else, she pulled a tiny box out of her clutch and opened it. Inside wasn't a ring. It was a silver chain with a charm, a typewriter. I don't like traditions, she said. So I'll ask you, will you build a life with me? And I said yes, because she was beautiful, because I was flattered, because I was too stunned to think, because at that point, I still believed this was love. The engagement didn't feel like a proposal. It felt like a branding. From that moment on, everything accelerated. She started introducing me as her fiancé in meetings I didn't even know we were having. Suddenly, we were co-founders of a startup production brand. Her name listed first on the website. Our apartment lease switched to her name. My mailbox was filled with invitations to events I didn't remember agreeing to attend. I was being swept into a storm that wore her perfume. She bought me new clothes, told me what to wear to meetings, rewrote my bios on social media, said things like, This is the image we're building, Elijah. We? Even our engagement photos were her idea, taken in black and white, staged like magazine spreads, published in a trade newsletter. She framed the one where I'm looking at her like she's the sun, but she chose the caption, Creative Power Couple, the future of original storytelling. I wasn't holding the pen anymore. I was just the subject. One night, I confronted her. Do you ever ask me what I want? I asked. She looked up from her laptop. Of course I do. No. You tell me what I need, then expect me to thank you for it. She smiled, not kindly. Elijah, if I waited for you to catch up, we'd still be in your one bedroom, eating cereal over final drafts. That line hurt more than it should have, because it wasn't completely wrong. I had stalled. I had gotten stuck. But that wasn't what she meant. She wasn't pushing me forward. She was dragging me into her version of success, a version where I didn't matter unless I performed. A few weeks later, she handed me a thick envelope. Prenup? I asked, trying to joke. She didn't smile. Protection, she said. We're both entering this with assets. We need to be smart. I didn't even read the whole thing. I was too tired, too beat down to fight. I signed it, handed it back, and told myself it didn't matter. Love doesn't need paperwork, right? Wrong. Now, I lie in this hospital bed, her voice floating in through the door again. I need access to his medical records, she says, calm but insistent. I'm his fiancé. Fiancé. The word hits differently now. Back then, it felt like a promise. Now it sounds like a cage. The doctor asks her to wait. He wants to speak with me alone. She hesitates, then steps outside. When the door clicks shut, the doctor approaches. Mr. Cole, can you confirm something for me? I blink slowly, like I'm trying to make sense of the world. Do you remember your fiancé? I pause just long enough to be convincing. No, I whisper. He nods, writing something down. I glance at the paper. Possible dissociative amnesia. Recommend psychological observation. Good. Let them keep her at arm's length. I need space, time, to move. Because the engagement wasn't the beginning of a life. It was the beginning of a contract I never agreed to, and now it's time I write my own. There's a difference between suspicion and proof. Suspicion makes you restless. Proof makes you burn. I used to tell myself she'd never cheat. Not Elizabeth. She was too proud, too calculating. She didn't need sex to manipulate. She had ambition. And I wasn't the kind of man who searched phones or followed people home. That wasn't who I was. Until the night I opened her tablet by accident. We were in bed. She was in the shower, humming some old Billie Holiday tune she only played when she felt untouchable. I needed to check something. A production email, I think. She had given me her login months before, trusted me. Or maybe she was just careless. I opened the browser. I wasn't looking for anything, but the last tab was still open. A Google Drive folder, titled with his name, Nolan Archive Nolan, her former mentor, the man she owed everything to. The man who had once cornered me at a cocktail party and said, "You've got heart, kid. Too bad that's not enough in this town." There were videos, private, unlisted. She didn't label them. She didn't need to. It was her voice in the background, her laugh, her face reflected in a hotel mirror. I stared at the screen like it might shift, like it might become something else, something explainable. But it didn't. It stayed exactly what it was. A collection of moments she never intended for me to see. When she came back into the room, towel wrapped around her, I was still sitting on the edge of the bed. She froze. "What's wrong?" I said nothing. I couldn't speak. Her eyes flicked to the tablet in my hands. She didn't scream. She didn't deny. She just walked over, took it gently from me, closed the lid, and sat down. "Elijah," she said softly. "That was years ago." My heart was hammering. "While we were together?" She didn't answer, not directly. I was lost. He helped me feel visible. I didn't think we were permanent back then. "We were living together," I whispered. "You told me you loved me." She sighed, like I was being unreasonable. "I do, but I was scared. I didn't know if you'd ever grow into the man I needed." That was her excuse. I wasn't enough yet. I didn't leave that night. That's the part that still haunts me. I stayed, told myself it was complicated, that I could forgive her, that I just needed time. But deep down, a switch had flipped. I couldn't trust her anymore. I was just too afraid to act on it. Now, back in the hospital, I finally get my first visitor who isn't her. Anthony. He steps into the room like he's walking on landmines. He's older than I remember. Hair grayer, suit cheaper, still loyal, still mine. "Elijah," he says, voice low. "I got your message. Jesus, man." I give him a weak smile. The nurse wheels in a chair for him. "I need your help," I say slowly, pretending like I'm remembering pieces. "I don't trust her." He exhales. "That makes two of us." I glance toward the hallway. "She's trying to control everything. My records, my story, even what I remember." He leans in. "You want me to dig?" I nod once. "Start with the Nolan archive." He freezes. "You remember that?" "I remember enough." He nods. "All right. I'll be quiet. Careful." Before he leaves, he slips a burner phone under my blanket. "She checks everything, right?" he whispers. I nod. "Everything." We don't hug. We don't shake hands. That would be too much, too obvious. But when he leaves, I feel the smallest sliver of power slide back into my chest. Later that evening, Elizabeth returns with takeout from my favorite Thai place. She acts surprised that I remembered liking it. "You always ordered the basil beef," she says, smiling like it's some sacred memory. I smile back. Let her think she's winning. Because I've now confirmed what I only suspected. She betrayed me. Physically, emotionally, professionally. And this is only the first betrayal I could prove. They don't tell you how easy it is to lose yourself. Not all at once, but in fragments. At first, it was small things. I stopped listening to music when I wrote. Elizabeth said it distracted me. I stopped drinking black coffee. She said it made me jittery before meetings. I stopped writing at night. She said creativity was better controlled, managed. By the time I realized how far I'd gone, I didn't recognize the person in the mirror. That guy used to smile while writing, used to speak like his voice mattered. Now he only nodded, signed things, answered questions with what she wanted to hear. "Don't wear that to the table, Reed," she said once, handing me a different shirt. "We're not starving artists anymore." We. She always said we when she meant me, and you when she meant lesser. The worst part was, the people around us believed the illusion. They saw us at parties, red carpet events, networking brunches. I'd stand behind her like a shadow, smiling for cameras I didn't ask to be in, and they'd say, "You two are unstoppable. You balance each other. She's fierce, and you're the heart." That was the role she cast me in, the heart. A beautiful, bleeding organ she could display, then ignore. The more I faded, the more she shone. Her name started appearing on panels. Emerging voices in independent cinema. She sat on podcasts and told stories that used my words and her experiences. She took my trauma and polished it like a script note. "I grew up watching addiction destroy families," she said once. But it was my family. My father who drank himself into oblivion. My mother who vanished after his third arrest. Elizabeth had never met them. She never asked to. But it sounded better coming from her mouth. She told people I was reclusive, sensitive, that I didn't like the spotlight. She never mentioned that I stopped asking to be in it, because by then I had been rewritten. It wasn't until I saw my name missing from our latest script pitch that something snapped. We were at her apartment, which was technically ours, but I no longer had keys. She had a meeting the next day with a streaming platform, a pitch session for a new series based on one of my original concepts. I found the pitch deck on her laptop, left open on the coffee table. She was in the shower. I scrolled through it once, then again. My name didn't appear once, not as writer, not as creator, not even in the acknowledgments. When she came out, I was holding the laptop. "Elijah," she said, towel around her hair. "What are you doing?" I looked at her. "You erased me." She didn't even blink. They weren't interested in a co-write. They wanted something with a female lead from a female voice. I laughed, but it sounded wrong. Dry. "You didn't even tell me." She walked over, sat beside me. "Look, it's still our story. The core is still you." "No," I said quietly. "The core is dead." She tried to reach for my hand. I pulled away. "Don't be dramatic," she said. "You've been drifting. I had to keep things alive." "By burying me in the process?" She stood. "You're spiraling again." I looked up at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel hurt. I felt nothing, just emptiness where a self used to be. That night, I packed a bag. I left, but I didn't stay gone. She called. She cried. She said things like, "I need you, and we're stronger than this, and don't give up on us." And like an idiot, I came back, because I didn't know who I was without her anymore. Now, as I stare out the hospital window, I remember that moment. The one where I could have left for good. The moment I didn't. That was the lowest point. Not the cheating, not the stolen scripts. It was the quiet realization that she had taken so much from me. I didn't even know how to walk away. But that's not me anymore. I have a phone now, a burner, hidden in my mattress. Anthony is digging. The doctors are stalling her requests for full medical access, and I'm not writing her story anymore. I'm writing mine. It was dressed up like love. That's what I keep thinking about even now. How cleverly she masked control as concern. How she made every trap look like a favor. The contract came after a string of small wins. A script optioned, a pitch accepted, a panel invite with her name next to mine. We were building momentum, and for once, I almost felt like I was part of something real again. That's when she brought it up. "I talked to a lawyer today," she said over breakfast, sliding a glossy folder onto the kitchen island. "About us." I blinked. "Us?" She sipped her coffee. "It's time we start thinking like a business. If we're going to keep building together, we need to be smart." I opened the folder. The first page read, Partnership Agreement. Is this a prenup? I asked, even though we were already engaged. Not exactly, she said. It's a creative partnership agreement. It protects both of us. I started skimming. The language was dense, wrapped in polite legalese, but I recognized the shape of it. Anything we created while living together would be co-owned. Any profits distributed at her discretion. Any decisions made under a majority influence, which, in our two-person venture, meant her. She smiled. I had it drafted by someone who does contracts for Netflix. Very fair. Something inside me twisted. You think I'm going to steal from you? Of course not. She reached across the table and touched my hand. I'm protecting both of us. I've seen too many couples implode when success hits. I don't want that to be us. I looked at her then, not her face, but her posture. The way she leaned in, composed but not affectionate. She was already treating me like a client, like an investment. I should have refused, but I didn't. Instead, I said, Can I take it to someone first? Let a lawyer look at it? She hesitated, just for a second. Then the smile returned. Of course, if you think it's necessary. The next day, I asked Anthony if he knew anyone. He gave me a number, but I never called. I told myself it was paranoia, that I was being unfair, that I was lucky to have someone so forward-thinking. So I signed it. With a silver pen, no less. She insisted. For symbolism, the moment the ink dried, everything changed. She started excluding me from early talks with studios, saying it was just exploratory. Projects were filed under her LLC. I got CC'd on fewer and fewer emails, until eventually, she stopped sharing them altogether. But the worst part? It was legal. I had given her the keys. Now, in the hospital, I have the contract again. Anthony found a copy through her shared drive, buried under old project folders. He printed it, slid it under my pillow during a visit, and told me quietly, This thing's airtight, but maybe not bulletproof. I've read it 5 times now. Clause 22, Moral Turpitude. If one party is found guilty of behavior that could damage the public perception of the partnership, the contract can be dissolved. Interesting. I also found the clause she didn't mention, psychological competency determinations. If either party is deemed mentally unfit, all decision-making transfers to the other partner. So that's why she's so obsessed with my recovery. She's not nursing me back to health. She's managing an asset. This morning, she arrived with 2 coffees and a smile that was too bright for a woman who nearly ran me over. Sleep well? She asked, sitting beside my bed. I had dreams, I said softly. Weird ones. About what? I think I saw us. In a courtroom. She froze for just a breath, then laughed. Sounds more like a nightmare. I smiled back. Maybe. She handed me a notebook. Doctor says you should start journaling. Writing down whatever you remember or imagine. Could help. Could help her, she means. A record. A way to track my mental state. Something she can use. I accept the notebook. Flip it open. Then write my first line. I remember signing something. I just didn't know it was a cage. Some betrayals cut deeper than the act itself. It's the location that does it. Not a hotel room. Not some hidden text. But your home. Your sanctuary. That's what finally broke whatever was left of the illusion. It happened 3 months before the accident. The night I realized she didn't just lie. She desecrated. I came home early. The pitch meeting had been canceled last minute. Elizabeth wasn't answering texts, but I figured she was just screening calls. She did that when she was in the zone. No one got in, not even me. The moment I stepped into the apartment, something was wrong. The air smelled different, not perfume, cologne. I stood in the entryway, motionless, listening. There was a voice, male, low, confident, and then hers, playful, familiar. I didn't storm in. I walked, slowly, carefully, and there he was, sitting at the edge of our kitchen counter, shirt half-buttoned, drink in hand, and her, in a silk robe I bought her, laughing, touching his wrist. She saw me first. Her expression didn't change. No panic, no guilt, just calculation. Elijah, she said smoothly. You're back early. The man turned, didn't look surprised. I didn't know him, not by name, but I knew his face. One of the execs from a network we'd been trying to land for months. We had drinks once. He barely acknowledged me then. Now he stood in my kitchen like he owned it. I didn't speak. Couldn't. She poured him another drink. You remember Elijah, don't you? He grinned. Hard to forget. He's the writer, right? She nodded, eyes still on me. One of them. That broke something inside me. A fuse I didn't know existed. But I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just said, "Get out." The man looked to her. She shrugged, sipped her drink. "It's fine," she said. "He's emotional." He didn't move. I walked over, picked up the nearest heavy object, a crystal ashtray no one used, and dropped it on the floor. The crack echoed through the room. "Get out." That did it. He left. Elizabeth didn't. She walked over, calm as ever, and leaned on the counter. "I told you not to come home tonight," she said. "No," I whispered. "You told me nothing." She studied me. "This isn't about him, it's about you. You've been spiraling for months, paranoid, weak." My hands were shaking, not with rage, with disbelief. "I loved you," I said. She scoffed. "You needed me. That's not the same thing. That night I slept in my car. She didn't call. She didn't follow. She knew I'd come back. And I did, eventually, because I didn't know how to rebuild from nothing. Because she had made sure there was no version of me that existed without her fingerprints all over it. Now, lying in a hospital bed while she scrolls through her phone at my side, I remember every second of that night. Every word, every crack in the foundation. She thinks I don't remember her lover, our home, the way she violated both. She's wrong. This morning, Anthony visited again, disguised as a distant cousin. He brought news. The man from our kitchen? His name was Jeremy Landon, and now he's an executive producer on a limited series Elizabeth just sold. "Guess what it's based on?" Anthony said with a grim smile. "Your original pitch. The one we developed 2 years ago. The one she told me didn't have legs. Now it's greenlit, with Jeremy attached, and my name erased." I nod, not surprised. Anthony leans in. We dig deeper. She falls harder. "She already fell," I murmur. "She just doesn't know it yet." Later, Elizabeth leans over to kiss my forehead, a gesture she thinks shows affection, ownership. "Your memory's getting better," she says sweetly. "I can see it in your eyes." I smile, because she's right. And the clearer it gets, the more dangerous I become. The second time I left her, I swore it would be permanent. It wasn't, but it wasn't because I didn't try. I packed my things late at night after she left for a press dinner. She always underestimated me when I was quiet. She thought silence meant surrender. She never learned the difference between silence and planning. I took only what I could carry: old notebooks, flash drives, the folder with every early draft of the scripts we co-wrote, a battered laptop with a dying battery but one critical hard drive, one she didn't know still existed. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam the door. I just disappeared. For 2 days, she didn't call, didn't text. I thought maybe I'd done it. Maybe I'd slipped free. On the 3rd day, I got a notification. My bank account, frozen. My shared credit card, deactivated. The 4th day, I got a letter from her attorney. "Mr. Cole, per the terms of the partnership agreement signed on." I didn't finish reading it. She wasn't just punishing me. She was erasing me. By the end of the week, calls stopped coming from studios. I checked LinkedIn. My name had been scrubbed from 2 projects we'd pitched together. One had been picked up. I wasn't listed anywhere. Anthony tried reaching out to contacts, but no one would return his messages. It was like I'd vanished. Or worse, like I never existed. That was her power. Narrative. She didn't need to destroy me in public. She just rewrote the story until people forgot I was ever part of it. And for a while, I almost did too. I stayed in a friend's spare room, worked nights stocking shelves, tried writing again, but the words didn't come. Not the same ones. Not the ones I used to trust. And then came the article. One of those puff pieces written in some trendy digital magazine. Elizabeth Monroe, reinventing cinema's power couple model, alone. She spoke about her journey, about creative heartbreak and rebuilding after betrayal. Me. She meant me. She told the world I had cheated, that I had sabotaged her projects out of jealousy, that I had walked away from our shared vision. She called it a survival story. I called it fiction. It didn't matter. The world loves a strong woman with a knife behind her back, as long as she smiles when she stabs. That's when I knew. There was no redemption coming, no quiet victory. I couldn't just walk away and hope to heal. I would have to take her apart, methodically, story by story, lie by lie. Now in the hospital, she plays the same part. Brings me pastries from the bakery she used to ban me from. Too many carbs. Shows me articles about her latest film deal and says, "Isn't it incredible? You always said we'd make it someday." I nod weakly. Let her think I'm fading. Meanwhile, Anthony is working overtime. We have emails, calendar overlaps, hotel confirmations, production drafts, voice memos where she rehearses lines before meetings using words I wrote years ago. Most damning of all, a series of photos from a launch party, taken from a back room where she's kissing Jeremy while wearing my engagement ring. Proof. Real, dirty, inescapable proof. And she has no idea I have it. But she's growing suspicious. Last night she stayed longer than usual. Sat on the edge of my bed, studying me like a specimen under glass. "You've been quiet lately," she said. I smiled. "Just tired." She tilted her head. "You've been watching me, more than before." I met her gaze. "You're hard not to watch." She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. "What are you remembering, Elijah?" "Not much," I said, "but enough." She leaned in, too close. "Be careful with what you remember. Memory is fragile. Sometimes you create things that never really happened." I kept smiling, but in that moment, I saw her clearly. She wasn't just manipulative. She was dangerous. And that's when I stopped caring about clean revenge. She didn't deserve silence. She deserved the scream. The first time I saw my words on screen, without my name, it wasn't at a premiere. It was at 3 in the morning. Anthony sent me a private screener link. No warning, no commentary, just a subject line. "Brace yourself." It was the pilot episode of Glass Mirror, Elizabeth's newest critically acclaimed drama. I watched it alone in the dark hospital room, one headphone in, heart like glass. Scene 1, the opening monologue. A woman walking along a shoreline, talking to herself. About grief, silence, redemption. Word for word, mine. Lifted from a notebook I'd buried 2 years ago. A draft she'd once dismissed as too literary. Now suddenly, it was visionary. Scene 2. A broken man watching the world move on without him. A quote, "I used to think healing meant forgetting, but healing is memory with the sharp edges sanded down." My line. Exactly. She hadn't just borrowed my work. She'd built her show around it. By the end of the episode, I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was clear. That show was my story. Butchered, dressed in her colors, performed for a world that never saw me. I texted Anthony one word. Enough. He didn't reply. He didn't have to. The next morning, I made my move. I asked the nurse for a pen. Told her I wanted to try writing. "Doctor's orders," I said. The notebook Elizabeth had given me was already full. Useless. I needed something new. I wrote out the entire monologue from the pilot, by memory, dated it, signed it, asked the nurse to witness, chain of custody, evidence. When Elizabeth arrived that afternoon, she looked rattled. "Rough day?" I asked, feigning softness. She sat down stiffly. "Someone leaked early footage of Glass Mirror. The studio's furious. We think it was someone on set." "Was it?" I asked, not blinking. She narrowed her eyes. "Why do you sound like that?" "Like what?" She didn't answer, just stared. "Have you remembered something?" she asked finally. I smiled. "Not exactly, but I've been dreaming again. Scenes, dialogues. They feel so real." She stood suddenly, walked to the window. "You need to be careful with dreams, Elijah. They trick you. You think they're memory, but they're not." I said nothing. Then she turned around. "What exactly do you remember?" "Just pieces," I said softly. "But it feels like Something important was stolen. She went still. That night, Anthony emailed me everything. Draft timestamps, early concept outlines with my name, metadata from documents proving creation dates long before the pilot's greenlight, screenshots of Elizabeth repurposing my prose in pitch emails, word for word. A voice memo she accidentally recorded while rehearsing for a panel. It's not plagiarism. It's evolution. I polished what he started. He wouldn't have made anything of it anyway. That was the final nail, and I knew exactly what to do with it. The following day, I contacted an old journalism acquaintance, a woman named Tessa who once profiled me for an indie writer's digest. I sent her everything. Anonymous tip. Titled the folder, Stolen Voice. Then I waited. When Elizabeth came by that evening, she had a smile frozen on her face. Too wide, too tense. "I'm being honored next month," she said. "A Women in Media Summit. They want me to keynote." I nodded. "That's great." She tilted her head. "You're calm today." "Something feels settled," I said. Later, after she left, my phone vibrated. Anthony had forwarded a link. Breaking. Glass Mirror accused of plagiarism. Source material predates creator credit. The article was brutal. Side-by-side comparisons, dated files, expert commentary, questions about her legitimacy. No names mentioned, yet. But the public was already drawing conclusions, and she had no idea. Tomorrow the paper would run a follow-up piece, with names, with quotes, with my full statement, including medical records showing a pattern of coercion, mental health manipulation, and psychological abuse. Elizabeth thought she owned my story, but she forgot who wrote the first draft. Silence is a language. People think it means surrender, but silence is where strategy breathes. While she sat beside me reading scripts I wrote and called them hers, I memorized every expression. While she called producers in my hospital room and spun stories about our journey, I was mapping her downfall line by line. Every lie she told became a sentence in the case against her. I knew the article would make a dent. I didn't expect the crater. By the next afternoon, her publicist had issued a non-statement. "We are reviewing the false and defamatory claims with legal counsel," but people weren't buying it. Screenshots flooded social media. Writers dissected the phrasing of the show's opening monologue, matching it to dated posts I'd made years before. Reddit threads exploded. TikToks pulled up archived interviews where Elizabeth contradicted her own origin story. Then came the hashtags. #stolen script #justice for Elijah #glass mirrorgate. And through it all, I said nothing, because my silence was louder than anything she could say. She came to visit that evening, makeup subdued, jaw tense. "They're trying to destroy me," she said before she even sat down. "Some bitter ex-staffers, probably Nolan, maybe even Jeremy's people." I nodded, eyes half-lidded. "You think they're working together?" "I know how this industry works, Elijah. When one woman rises, they come for her throat." I let that sink in. Then I said, "Why do they say it sounds like something I wrote?" She froze. I didn't blink. "They're wrong," she said, voice just a little too sharp. "Probably," I said. "Just strange. The quotes feel familiar." She stood, pacing now. "You're tired. This is just more memory confusion." "You think I'm remembering things that never happened?" "Yes, and it's dangerous." Her voice cracked. "You don't know what this is doing to me." I didn't reply. I let the silence stretch. When she left, I picked up the burner phone Anthony gave me, dialed his number. "She's unraveling," I said. "She's losing deals," he replied. 2 sponsors pulled out. Studio is panicking. Her rep's begging for a full review panel. Good. We're almost ready. The next morning, I asked to meet with the hospital's legal representative. On paper, it was about clarifying access permissions. In truth, it was about establishing medical gaslighting. I explained, carefully, how Elizabeth had been guiding my memory, steering it, claiming we'd created things together that I now realized were never ours. I said I was afraid, that I didn't feel safe, that she was pushing me to sign documents I didn't understand. And the hospital listened. They suspended her visitation rights for 48 hours, pending investigation. When she arrived and was turned away, she called me 6 times in a row. I didn't answer. That night, Anthony sent the final piece, a video. From a security camera in her old apartment building, a time-stamped recording of Jeremy entering and exiting, staying the night on multiple occasions while Elizabeth and I were still publicly engaged. I uploaded it to a secure legal drive, attached a copy of the partnership contract, highlighted the morality clause. Then I sent it all to her legal team. Subject line: termination request, breach of morality clause, psychological coercion. No threats, no drama, just the facts. I didn't want to fight. I wanted recognition. I wanted my name back. And I was done being quiet. I used to think revenge would feel like fire, like standing in the wreckage of someone else's empire and laughing as it burned. But this was colder. I watched the world change with the click of a headline. Her face, once everywhere, interviews, banners, cover stories, now vanished. A series of cancellations. A sudden pause on her next series. A quiet update on her profile. Unavailable for comment. That was the sound of her power crumbling. The studio dropped her the moment the video leaked. Jeremy Landon issued a statement calling their relationship brief and unprofessional. Investors pulled out of Glass Mirror's second season. No lawsuits, no press conference, just quiet distance. The industry doesn't apologize. It deletes. I didn't celebrate. I didn't throw a party. I booked a private rehab center for my last phase of recovery, far from the city, from her, from everyone. A quiet place where people went to be forgotten. But I didn't go there to disappear. I went to write. It was Anthony's idea. "You need to take back the story," he said. "Your story, in your own words, while they still want to hear it." So I started. Not with a script, not with dialogue, with a memoir. The final rewrite, a story she tried to erase. The irony didn't escape me. A woman who built a career stealing my words was now going to see the truth in print, this time with my name etched into the cover. I wrote in silence, in long stretches of darkness and clarity. The pain came back, of course, not just in my ribs or my shoulder, but in my head. The gaslighting, the second-guessing, the way I stopped recognizing myself. But for the first time, I didn't flinch from it, because I wasn't writing from the wound anymore. I was writing from the scar. Each chapter rebuilt a piece of me, the day we met, the lies I ignored, the contract I signed, the home she desecrated, all of it, unfiltered, exact, unforgiving. And when it was done, I sent it to a publisher who had reached out after the scandal broke. She read it in one night, called me the next morning with trembling words. "This is brutal," she said, "and necessary." A deal was signed within a week. The manuscript was locked, cover designed, press strategy outlined. It would release in 30 days. I told no one, not even Anthony, because this wasn't for applause. It was for justice. 1 week before the release, I received a letter from Elizabeth, not an email, not a message through lawyers, a handwritten letter on thick white paper postmarked from a hotel in Nevada. "Elijah, you win." I don't know what else to say. I built everything thinking I could control the narrative, but it turns out I only borrowed it. You were always the real writer. I just knew how to sell. I should hate you. I should find a way to spin this. But I'm too tired. Maybe I always was. Whatever you write, I won't fight it. I won't try to stop it. Just know that some part of me, the part that mattered, did love you, even if I was never good at it. I folded the letter, placed it in the drawer next to my desk. I didn't need it for court. I didn't need it for the book. But I kept it, because every story needs an ending. And this was mine. She waited until the week before publication. I hadn't heard her voice in over a month. No more hospital visits, no more curated smiles, no more pretending. She'd gone dark after the fallout. No media appearances, no social posts, no clarifying statements. She didn't deny anything, which might have been the most honest thing she'd done in years. But then, I got the message, a voicemail, short. Just her voice, cracked, small. The woman who once stood in rooms like she owned them now sounded like a shadow crawling back. "Elijah, please, just one conversation. I won't ask you to forgive me. I need to see you. Once, that's all." She didn't say why. Anthony heard it too. He raised an eyebrow when I played it for him. You gonna give her that meeting? I already have, I said. He blinked. Are you sure? No cameras, no witnesses, just us. He paused. You think that's smart? I looked at him, calm. I think it's necessary. We met in the most neutral place imaginable, a museum cafe downtown, public, quiet, no press, just the clink of cups and the dull hum of tourists who didn't recognize the ruined woman in sunglasses across from me. She didn't speak for the first full minute, just stared. I watched her, the way she dressed herself down, the way her once razor-sharp posture had softened. The pride was still there, buried but dented. I thought you'd say no, she said eventually. You've always thought I'd give you more credit than you deserved, I said evenly. That hurt. She didn't hide it. I didn't come to fight, she whispered. Then don't. She nodded, pressing her hands flat on the table. I read the leak, the book summary. I said nothing. I deserved every word of it. I raised an eyebrow. You here to confirm that on camera? No. She looked up. I'm here because I wanted to see if there was anything left of us. Anything I didn't poison. I tilted my head. And? She didn't answer. Instead, she took off her sunglasses. Her eyes, tired, dry, rimmed with regret. Not the kind you perform, the kind you feel when there's no one left to lie to. You know what I regret most? She asked. Not stealing, I guessed. Not cheating, not lying, not gaslighting me out of my own identity. So what then? She swallowed hard. Not listening when you said you felt erased. I leaned forward. You didn't just erase me, Elizabeth. You rewrote me, in public. You weaponized the narrative. You knew I was breaking, and you picked up a pen. Tears pooled in her eyes, but I didn't stop. You saw my silence as surrender, and you turned my loyalty into leverage. You didn't just lie, you built a career out of it. She looked down, ashamed. And for the first time in years, I believed it wasn't a performance. I don't expect forgiveness, she whispered. I know. I don't even expect privacy. You won't get it. She nodded, but I needed to say it. One last time, before your book comes out, before the world learns who I really was. I stared at her for a moment. Then I asked the only question that mattered. Was any of it real? She blinked. What? The rooftop, the first draft, that night in the rain, you proposing. She hesitated, then nodded, slow. Yes, she said, until it stopped being about us. I stood. That's the last sentence I'll ever write with you in it. I left her at the table, alone, no cameras, no one watching. She didn't call out. She didn't follow. And that was the last time I saw her. The night before the release, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't nerves. I wasn't afraid of what people would think. That part of me, the part that needed approval, had died long ago. It was something else. A hum in my bones. A static before the storm. I went for a walk. The city was quieter than I remembered. Maybe it was always this quiet and I had just been too loud inside to notice. I ended up on West 3rd, a stretch of road that held no memory for most people. For me, it was where everything had changed, where glass had shattered, where brakes had screamed, where I made a choice, not to die, but to begin again. I stood on the same curb, the same crosswalk, the same spot where her headlights had caught me like a stage light. Most people still didn't understand why I did it. They thought I was broken. They thought I was lost. They thought it was the final cry of a man with nothing left to live for. But they were wrong. It wasn't a surrender. It was a reset. Because sometimes to rewrite a story, you have to destroy the old draft completely. I stepped forward into the intersection. A car came into view. Sleek, familiar, silver. I knew that car. Elizabeth's. She hit the brakes hard, just like last time. I stood still, one step into the street. She rolled down the window. Elijah? I turned slowly, met her eyes. Pure panic. What are you doing? Are you out of your mind? No, I said. I'm just finishing what I started. She got out of the car, Left the door open, hazard lights blinking. You can't do this. You can't. Not again. People will think. They'll think whatever they want, I said. They always do. You don't have to prove anything anymore, she pleaded. You won. Isn't that enough? I looked at her. She was right. I had won. But this wasn't about winning anymore. I pulled something from my coat pocket. A manuscript. The first few pages of the memoir. Printed, folded, signed. I held it out. She hesitated. What is this? My story, I said. The real one. She took it, slowly. I included you, I said. All of it. But not how you think. She opened the first page, read the title aloud. At the story's end. She looked up. You still wrote about me. I wrote past you. Silence. The lights changed. The street cleared. A new day began. I stepped back onto the sidewalk. Past her. Past the wreckage. Past the wait. She didn't follow. I didn't look back. The memoir dropped at noon. By sundown, it was trending. Readers posted quotes. Reviewers called it unflinching, surgical, devastatingly honest. One headline read, "He was silent, then he spoke, and Hollywood listened." Another, "At the story's end, but the writer's beginning." I didn't attend the book launch, didn't sit for interviews. I let the words speak. That was always the point. But I did do one thing. I wrote her name on a slip of paper, folded it, burned it, and watched it disappear. I thought I'd feel relief. That when the memoir hit the shelves, when the headlines shifted from scandal to story, when the world started calling me the survivor instead of the shadow, I'd feel whole. But it didn't work like that. Because truth doesn't heal you. It just clears the debris so you can see the wounds. I spent days alone after the release. Phone buzzing with interview requests, agents offering deals, podcasts wanting exclusives. Everyone wanted to hear more pain, more inside details, more blood. But I didn't want to bleed anymore. I turned most of it down, kept the noise at bay. The book sold out within 72 hours, went into reprint, hit the bestseller list in its first week. College professors reached out to discuss adapting it for coursework. A film producer even sent a treatment, asking if I'd consider a series adaptation. This time, with full creative control. I said I'd think about it. But the real surprise came in an envelope. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. A typed note, no signature. You think you've written the truth, but what you wrote was yours, not mine. I read it twice, once in anger, once in silence. It wasn't Elizabeth's handwriting, but it was her voice, still trying to rewrite, still trying to claim authorship of a life she'd fractured. I folded the page, burned it, because I didn't need her truth anymore. Mine was enough. I visited the place we first met, the old bookstore. It had closed down during the pandemic, windows dust-covered, sign faded. But I stood outside it for a while, remembering. Not her. Me. The man I used to be, unsure, soft-spoken, hungry for love in all the wrong places. I didn't hate him. He wasn't weak. He was just unfinished. Anthony called that night. He'd been quiet too, staying out of the spotlight by design. She's moved, he said. Where? Small town, somewhere in Oregon, no social media, changed her last name. I nodded, even though he couldn't see. Let her go, I said. That chapter's closed. He paused, then added, You did good, Elijah. You told the truth. Yeah, I said. But more importantly, I stopped letting her tell it for me. When the anniversary of the accident came around, a few bloggers wrote retrospectives. The leap that became a statement, one called it, funny. They still thought the jump was about her. But it never was. It was about erasure. About what happens when a man gets rewritten so many times, he decides to rip up the script and start again, even if it means destroying himself in the process. I didn't die that night. I rewrote the ending. Now, when I speak at colleges, I always tell the same thing. They can steal your words, your work, your name, but not your why, not if you fight for it. A student once asked me if I regret loving her. I said no. because she gave me the one thing I never had before, a story worth reclaiming.